Phase 0, Season 3, Episode 49. I'm your host today, Jenna Anderson. BD is feeling a little under the weather after his trip to Brazil, but he is here in spirit and in the comment section, which we love. Joining me today is Jamie Jirak.
Good morning. It's a trio day. Let's go.
And Aaron Perrine.
What's going on, guys? Excited to talk about all of this stuff.
Yes, we have a lot of news to break down this week. I was like, between the three of us, we can talk about all of these news items for like 2 hours. So I think we're good. But before we get into that, we have some bonus episodes to tease. I know Jamie and Aaron have an episode that is debuting this Friday. Can you guys kind of tease what people have to look forward to?
Yeah, Aaron, you should do it.
We have fun for you if you like the $200 million movie that made a profit at the box office this year.
You can say what it is. Like,
That's a good nugget.
We're ripping the Band-Aid off. We're telling people what it is. So
okay, well, we talked to the VFX team from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. We have a bunch of people. In fact, so many people, me and Jamie put on our ringleader hats to make sure everybody could talk, because it's like 6 people, 7 people, an army, only a smaller version of the actual army that it takes to make the movie. So think you'll really enjoy our conversation about all the parts of the movie you guys really love. There was so much to talk about and so many people that we tried to do the best we could. We talked a lot of it.
2 interviewers and 4 interviewees is like, I've never experienced that before. It was a fun like puzzle challenge, but we got a good amount of time with them, and it's just some really interesting stuff. And because of it, I watched Guardians 3 for the 4th time. So that was a bonus part for me.
We love to see it. I cannot wait to listen to that interview, especially just to see the logistics of how you guys worked that out. It sounds like you had a lot of fun.
Me and Jamie went ahead and did some jump roping to learn how to switch with each other, to learn how to tag in and tag out of it. So it worked.
I love it. So that is coming this Friday. And then next Friday, tentatively, we will have a Disney Plus show rankings episode. So for everyone who knows how chaotic our rankings episodes get, we have one on the horizon to look forward to. Jamie is already losing her mind.
I wonder what all our number ones will be.
There's no way of knowing whatsoever. But yeah, so those are our bonus episodes to look forward to on the horizon. But today we have a lot of Marvel news, so we will just dive right into it, beginning with Ryan Reynolds issued a statement this morning regarding the deluge of Deadpool 3 set photos that have surfaced on the internet. We are not going to talk about what is in those photos. We're not going to talk about where to find those photos. If you want to, you can go find them. But just know that they probably are going to spoil stuff that you would probably rather see in the movie itself. And so he issued a statement this morning saying, surprises are part of the magic of of theatrical movies. It's important to us to shoot the new Deadpool film in real, natural environments using practical effects as opposed to making the movie indoors and digitally. Telephoto lenses continue to spoil surprises and create a difficult situation for everyone. Here's hoping some of the websites and social channels hold back showing images before they're ready. The film is built for audience joy, and our highest hope is to preserve as much of that magic as possible for the finished film and the big screen. Part of the reason people post spoilers is because they're excited. I realize these aren't real world issues, and it's firmly in the good problems bucket. How do we feel about this statement?
I really like this statement. I think it's because I think it's good to acknowledge, like, I know this isn't like a real problem, but it's a problem for us. It's a problem for like us whose lives revolve around these things. It is such a bummer. I've been trying so hard to avoid these things, but when you do what we do, it's like nearly impossible. And it sucks as a fan. And it's just, we've talked about this so much, but I'll never understand why people bring joy out of ruining these things when, like, the surprise in the two surprises in the Marvels, not knowing that was such a joy. And it was the first time I think this year that I got to feel that in a while. And I don't stop taking that away from us, people with cameras.
Aaron, how do you feel about it?
I mean, I've been on record with this. I feel like the whole spoiler-centric culture, scooper culture, has really diminished more of the feelings about these movies than the actual movies themselves. Because going into the movie theater and not knowing what's happening is less and less likely for anybody who's watching the show. Because if you watch the show, you're in deep. We're in deep territory. We're in deep down the MCU iceberg. If you're down here watching Phase Zero, which thank you, keep watching. It's going to be hard. It's only going to be harder to like escape these things as things go by. I mean, you can only have Andrew Garfield play the werewolf so long before we all just don't trust you. Shout out to Jamie. They're all liars. Yeah.
My legacy.
I'm so glad that moment got clipped and shared on Twitter. I agree with Aaron completely. I feel like I tweeted this when the Marvels stuff got spoiled for the Marvels before the press screenings could even happen over in the States. It's like having Christmas or having your birthday, and a day before that day, some weirdo posts a picture of all of your presents on Twitter. You're going to like Christmas or your birthday a little bit less. Like, that's categorically true. And so I think this is a very similar situation where people are less excited because they know so much going in. And yes, that's just a fraction of the audience. There are so many people who don't follow any of this on the internet and still go watch the movies. But I think it definitely has an impact on the culture. And I'm glad that Ryan's actually saying something about it because it's ridiculous. So speaking of Deadpool and Foxverse related things.
Oh, the Foxverse. Sir Patrick Stewart teased a possible return in Secret Wars. Come on, boy. We know. Come on. So he talked to E-Talk and he said, I cannot put it to rest because it's not a fact, either for or against. It is a possibility. Hugh Jackman and I looked upon Logan as being our farewell, giving that I died in that film, although I've been told I've actually died several times already. Yeah, you did. You're no Coulson, but you're up there. Yeah, you know, it's one of those things because Patrick Stewart is a classy older gentleman and he's not a liar. So he's like, maybe we'll see, because he's not going to say no because he knows better, because he has integrity.
I am just in awe of your Patrick Stewart impression. That was just beautiful. That was so good. I like you said, he doesn't have a reason to lie about this stuff. So I'm glad he's being honest about it. And I'm glad that he is acknowledging how much Charles dies in canon, because it is kind of a recurring gag at this point.
Can I say that I think he's gonna die 2 more times before we get to Secret Wars? Like, minimum. He gonna bite it 2 more times. You heard it here first. I'm very happy too that they don't really like him and Patty LuPone and Alfred Molina have like some sort of anti-Feige shield where they don't get sniped if they say things into a microphone. Yeah. So protect him at all costs.
It's because they're actors. That's why. Also, Alfred Molina has like the protection of a very powerful wife. So
that is true. That's very true.
That's true.
Do we think he's going to be in Secret Wars? Like, it's a foregone conclusion, I feel like, at this point. But how do y'all feel?
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
I think we're seeing his sirness next year. And
Interesting.
that he's probably gonna bite it in that movie too, unfortunately.
It's just like Kenny in South Park, just like keep finding increasingly ridiculous ways to kill him off. That would be the dream. So speaking of dead characters and them possibly returning, this quote kind of broke the internet over the weekend. Kevin Feige was quoted in a Vanity Fair profile of Robert Downey Jr. and was asked if they would resurrect Iron Man. And he said, "We are going to keep that moment and not touch that moment again. We all worked very hard for many years to get that, and we would never want to magically undo it in any way." Jamie, go ahead.
We all know what this means. It's dumb. Like, yeah, we're not going to get our Tony Stark back. We know that. That's fine. We're going to see Robert Downey Jr. Come on. I don't know if you guys saw my text, though. I explained this to my mother, and she was not excited about it.
I saw that. That was
my
delightful.
mother was like, "Oh, not exciting." So Feige doesn't have mom, but no, I'm sorry. It's just words. It's the words of liars who think they're being clever, but we know.
Because I've also seen a second camp of people believing that just Downey already turned them down because it's like, I'm going to probably get an Oscar nomination. I have this like next act of my career. I don't need to come back, which like I would believe that if it possibly was the case. But I do believe we're going to get him back just in a multiversal context. Like they're just not going to undo the moment that we got with 616 Tony Stark.
When he comes out there in that awful superior Iron Man, like whatever the one where he's silver and he's tech bro from San Francisco, everybody prepare yourselves now. Jim Viscardi hates that costume, so I'm kind of rooting for that to happen just so I can see what happens with Jim because he'll lose his mind. It's great.
Oh my God. Now I need that to happen too. That would be so good.
Amazing.
And then speaking of Downey, he and Mark Ruffalo did a little variety actors on actors thing. And there was one bit from that was delightful. So Aaron, if you want to.
Oh, sure. So they're talking to each other, actors between two ferns looking set up, nice chairs. And Downey said that they kind of didn't understand what they'd be talking about all the time. So he said, "Well, I mean, in the Marvel days, everything might change, or we're talking to a tennis ball. You and I, the science bros, we would have these long passages about absolute gobbledygook. But it's still important to us because we know it's important to the characters." And that's funny. That's really silly. Gobbledygook, top tier Scrabble word. We hear this more and more with the actors where they're like, "I don't really understand what the heck I'm saying," or whatever. But I think that's just, I guess, like part and parcel because there's all sorts of projects where they're like, "I don't really get what's going on." Me and Jamie love Michael Keaton talking about any of this stuff because he's always in a constant haze of, I don't know what the heck is happening. I just go where they tell me to stand on the X and I say the words and the checks appear in my hands and I buy more cool jackets. What do you guys think about it?
I agree. Like this feels like a staple of superhero media at this point. I feel like there's so many like actors from the Arrowverse too who have been like, I don't know what I'm saying or if it's even the field of science that my character supposedly does. So I'm glad that like Downey and Ruffalo are acknowledging this. I also saw another bit from their interview going around where apparently like they were kind of flirting with each other. So everyone was like, if you shipped Science Bros in 2012, you are very, very vindicated right now. So I'm glad this interview exists because it seems like it was a blessing.
I haven't watched the interview yet. I need to do that and the Barbenheimer one. They're on my agenda for this week. But it makes me think of that Friends joke where Joey does the smell the fart acting, where he has to like think about the really long medical words that he doesn't know what they mean before he says them. Like I would be so bad. I'm so bad at pronouncing things. This would be a nightmare. Like I would have to get a script and everything would have to be phonetic for me to understand what was happening.
Same, honestly.
I think that if they do any more bits for Loki, it should just be Tom Hiddleston and OB doing like tongue twisters at each other because both of the Key and Tom are very good at just doing the weird science technobabble thing.
I completely agree with that. That would be great. So we are going to take a quick 1 minute break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the Marvels, Blade, Thunderbolts, a lot of MCU stuff on the horizon. So stay tuned. back. Welcome back to Phase Zero. We are going to talk about a subject that has been very contentious on the show. We've talked about it a lot lately. We're going to talk about the Marvels and its box office and the recent decisions made by Disney regarding that. So over the weekend, it was announced that Disney will no longer be reporting the box office results of the Marvels, in part because it had fallen out of the top 10 highest grossing for that weekend. And then a couple days before that, Bob Iger was at a kind of tech media conference, and he addressed the underperformance of the Marvels and gave a really weird reason. His quote was, "The Marvels was shot during COVID and there wasn't enough supervision on set from executives." I need to address that first, because first of all, I've seen tweets of people saying that is just across the board with Marvel. Like that is not a problem mutually exclusive to this movie. I'm reading the MCU Reign of Marvel Studios book, and just seeing that be a problem, even with some Phase 1 movies, is really, really interesting. But that's such a weird thing to blame it on, also because that's not a thing that audiences can detect when determining whether or not they're going to go see this movie. So I think that excuse is wild. How do we feel about that?
Speaking of gobbledygook that comes out of your mouth that is meaningless, Iger, someone get him and teach him some word mouth things. I'm sorry. What is he talking about? Like, first of all, I've had this conversation so many times. I've had it twice this week where someone's like, I heard the Marvels is really bad. And I'm like, no, the box office is bad. Look at those scores, those Rotten Tomato scores. That's a 60-something% and an 80-something% on there. That isn't bad. That critic score is much better than Quantumania. I'll tell you that right now. Like, to say, like, Iger's equating this box office with how the movie is, and that's just not a fact. This is not about what was done on set at this movie. This is about marketing. This is about a strike that occurred during this. This is about fatigue. This is about people thinking they have to have homework. It is not about what was going on that set. And I'm sorry, but they are laying down things against Nia DaCosta for this that is just shocking. The way that headlines are, everything. It's like they're putting it on this woman. Oh, wow. I'm so surprised to hear that. It's so infuriating. And it sucks that this happened at the box office, and it sucks that it's our job to talk about it, because it makes me so sad. But to say that it's because there wasn't supervision from a studio on set is just the biggest load of nonsense I've ever heard.
I applause. I completely agree. Aaron, how do you feel?
I already pointed out that Livy Scott over at Inverse has a great piece about this very idea that you cannot, in one hand, champion diversity and love Ryan Coogler and the things that he has brought to the franchise, or shout out to Destin, what he did with Shang-Chi or whatever, and then also hide your hands when things do not go well, because this was not supported the way that a lot of these big projects end up being supported. Like, I haven't seen a commercial probably since opening weekend. That's probably a problem. I mean, I know Wish is going on and they need the push behind that. It sucks that it freaking debuted against Beyonce. Like, that's going to be a problem. There are, as Jamie so eloquently pointed out, there are other higher order concerns for why the box office looks the way it did. Also, underrating apparently the hilarious, strong support for a Hunger Games franchise that I didn't think needed that movie, but apparently really wanted it. So those are things I feel like are more attributable. He's fighting a lot of battles on a bunch of different fronts, I think, for sure, and tries to, like, there's another funnier part of this to me where he talks about, like, I'm not going to apologize for doing sequels. Also, we did too many sequels in that same interview, which is, like, very funny, because it's like, I didn't grind my feet on Eddie Murphy's couch. Of course, I run my feet on Eddie Murphy's couch to it, where I'm like, it was 5 seconds ago. You just said. So yeah, it sucks that they get that she's getting sacrificed up here. But do I expect anything else? No.
I will say with the marketing of it all, because like I'll keep ABC on in the background, and like they did show ads maybe in like the second weekend of like #1 movie in the world or whatever, and then it has completely dropped off. The only ads that I really see for like a recent movie are promoting Dial of Destiny being on Disney Plus. Like there have been like 3 times the amount of ads for that than I ever saw for the Marvels on TV, which is kind of wild. So I echo everything that you guys just said. I think they're throwing this movie and they're throwing Nia to the wolves, and it really, really sucks, because this movie is delightful. It is not at all, like Jamie said, the quality is not not reflected at all by the box office. That has never been the case, but it is especially not the case in the world of comic book movies. There are some really great comic book movies that have not made money. There are some not great comic book movies that have made tons and tons of money. So it just sucks that this movie is further proving that point and that we're kind of in this situation. But I don't know. If this movie was released in May, if they had delayed it and kept it exactly the same and just put it out the first weekend of May, that normal start of summer slot that they normally have, I think this conversation would be massively different. Like, we would not be here at all. And so it's just so many circumstances, and it sucks.
It does. Let's talk about something else.
Yes.
So we got Mahershala talking about Blade being back on track. He's talking to EW about it, and he said, "We're working on it, and that's the best I can tell you. I'm really encouraged with the direction of the project, and I think we'll be back at it relatively soon." So it seems that our star is happy with some of the recent whatever recalibration or whatever you want to call it. Are people feeling better about this now that we actually have the person themselves saying how they feel about the project rather than the weird backdoor whispering?
One day I will believe that Blade's a real movie. Not today, but like this is helping me believe that it is eventually going to be a real movie.
Was this quote just in print, or could we hear it?
I think it's in print.
Okay, because I kind of read it as a little deflated, but I need to hear how he said it. Like, that's the best I could tell you. Like, maybe I'm just, because we've heard so many things about this movie. I just want it to be so good. But like, this reads like a statement that he has to say, but I don't know, because it's just words. It's not, I don't hear an inflection or anything. So maybe I'm just projecting my own feelings of nervousness. But I hope that the encouragement is real, because you know how I feel about vampires in the MCU. I am ready. My body is ready, Mahershala. So I hope.
Now that you pointed that out, I am just reading it in the most like deflated monotone voice possible. Like, we're working on it. Like, but I hope you're right. I hope this eventually becomes a real movie, because I would love to see that if that actually happens.
If you listen to RPK, they start filming soonish, like sooner than anyone thinks. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. Yeah. And also the stuff about the budget too. I mean, there's a cause for optimism, and the rating too, wasn't it? Didn't they say it was gonna be R?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, we're in uncharted territory, so I don't know.
Here's hoping. Speaking of other upcoming movies that are on the horizon, Jamie has a very big quote to read about Thunderbolts.
Wyatt Russell spoke to Josh Horowitz from MTV about Thunderbolts. He said, "I know director Jake Schreier so well. I know how smart Jake is and how he cares about making something interesting and different and utilizing everyone's talents to the best of their ability. And the story I think they've come up with is really interesting. I know parts of the story and how the story works. I can't talk about it, but it's not a straightforward Marvel movie as you've seen in the past. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, but I think it will be something hopefully Marvel fans will look at and go, oh, okay, this is a little different. Let's go hard at it. And as far as how we are approaching it, it's time to go to work a little bit. It's time to make a good Marvel movie. So let's do that and work hard at it, and don't take things for granted."
When this quote first dropped, it like we shared it in the night cruise like Slack at work, and everyone was just like, take a drink every time someone says this isn't a typical Marvel movie, because it feels like that happens all the time. But what he is saying is very interesting and makes me optimistic. I hope that they put their money where their mouth is, and it's not just, oh, this is like something we heard that about Eternals. We've heard that about so many superhero movies, and that hasn't necessarily come to pass.
I mean, Eternals is different. It's like shot on sand. Go ahead, Jay.
I was gonna say I don't know how different you can be with a team like this. I'm so excited for this movie, and I really like Wyatt Russell. I do think the to make a good the way he said that makes it seem like he was implying there's been some bad Marvel movies, which I don't know. But yeah, the whole like it's going to be different. I'm there have been, listen, Phase 4 was the phase of difference. There was a lot of different stuff popping up in that phase, whether you liked it or not. But I just don't know how Thunderbolts, the most different we can get is like Harrison Ford. Even though David Harbour thinks we're not allowed to talk about it, Harrison Ford is going to be there.
I feel like different could theoretically mean like grittier, more violent, like borrowing from, you know, the Suicide Squad of it all. But like, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of room, especially based off of like what we have heard and what Robert Kirkman has already spoiled about this movie, for them to possibly do something different. I just don't know what that actually means.
I love the like weird little Robert Kirkman shout out because yeah, I'm about to say he's our source for most of the stuff about this movie, right?
At this point, yeah.
I laughed because I started thinking about it and I was like, wow, that boy has a punchable face. And then I tried to digest the rest of the stuff he was saying because I just remember Falcon Winter Soldier and being like, "Ooh boy, punchable face factor 8,004." I guess so. Like, we still don't know much about this one either. Like, it's undergone significant rewrites and stuff as well. Our good friend Eddie Park has had to like retract things. I think that the quote that I'm joking around about is why Jamie and you are so excited for this movie, because if it is just Black Widow 2, there is a strong section of the fan base that's gonna be like, hooray! All I can say is like, bring it on. And then this is supposed to be start filming before the end of next year too, again, you know?
There's reason to hope, which is sometimes that's all we can ask for on the show. So we're going to take another quick 1-minute break. And when we come back, we have some Spider-Man updates and some talk about King Dynasty. So stay tuned. Welcome back to Phase Zero. We still have a lot to talk about on this show, beginning with some Spider-Man 4 updates. Jamie has another big quote to read.
Ooh, here I go again. Tom Holland addresses Spider-Man 4. He spoke to Collider, and he said, "All I can say is that we have been actively engaging in conversations about what it could potentially look like for a fourth rendition of my character. Whether or not we can find a way to do justice to the character is another thing. I feel very protective over Spider-Man. I feel very, very lucky that we were able to work on a franchise that got better with each movie and got more successful with each movie, which I think is really rare, and I want to protect his legacy. So I won't make another one for the sake of making another one. It will have to be worth the while of the character."
I admire that. I think that is a very good outlook to have. It just seems like, you know, Sony and Marvel wanting money kind of gets in the way of that. But let's hope that his like intuition regarding it is right. And like what we've heard so much scuttlebutt and so many rumors about Spider-Man 4. We've talked about them, I feel like, every single week on the show for the past month. But it feels like if any of that ends up being true, it could end up working. So I don't know. We'll just have to see.
I mean, they're making another one. Like, the rights cannot revert. So
yeah.
we're making another Spider-Man 4, whether it's you, whether it's Andrew, whether it's some other person, we don't know yet, you know? Matthew Lenz is still out there. He could probably fit into the suit. So hopefully, I think we're going to learn this is getting announced at Comic-Con next year, like for sure, or whatever, like that, or CinemaCon. Like, there will be an announcement of, here's your fourth one, without much other information, because we can never learn the names of this franchise's movies until like 3 months beforehand, you know, through somebody's weird iPhone 2.
Or through like a t-shirt that got uploaded on Zazzle.
Right, exactly.
I just remember I have more flashbacks to the show where the like biggest news item we had to talk about was like there was a T-shirt with the No Way Home logo on it, and it was available to purchase online, and that was like all we had to talk about. Look at where we are now, for better or for worse, we're here.
I feel like this is kind of reads like Patrick Stewart's quote, where he's just trying not to lie, because I think that he knows that this is happening, and he's just all he's saying is truthful things. It's important to him, but I think he already knows. Whether we're getting a full trilogy, I know that that's been discussed. That seems a lot. Like that's a lot of movies. This man he's not 30 yet, right? He's going to be entering his 30s. He's got new phases of life to enter, but I don't want to see him stop playing Spidey. But I think that he already knows that this movie is going to happen.
Oh, absolutely. And as we've said on the show, you kind of have to get into that before Secret Wars. You cannot do the black suit moment if the last time we saw Peter Parker at all was in No Way Home. Like that would just be a very wild pivot to do. So also on the Spidey front, I feel like Jamie manifested this news. We have some updates on the Spider-Man Noir TV series that is in the works for Prime Video. Stephen Lightfoot, who worked on The Punisher, is set to be the kind of head writer and showrunner for this show. So Jamie, how are you feeling?
I mean, here's the thing. Exciting, but if it's not Nick Cage, my excitement level is going to drop significantly. Like, I love this character, but a part of the reason is because I love the way Cage voices him in the first Spider-Verse movie. You guys know how I feel about Nicolas Cage. He is my second favorite actor of all time, and I can't imagine anyone else now playing that character. But setting aside my biased feelings, I do think this character is so juicy and like there's so much that could be done that if I don't get what I want, I will have to sit back and remember that that does not mean it's not going to be good. I'm sure it'll be good because there's so much cool stuff they can do with this. So that's the mentality I'm in right now.
I was going to say, if they hire a younger actor who like captures the essence of Nick Cage, like does the same sort of vibe, would you be content with that?
I mean, there's only one Nick, but unless it's John Travolta wearing his face, but but no, I think that, yes, I think that if we get that kind of broody, Porco Rosso attitude, I'll be happy.
Aaron, how do you feel about this?
I mean, that Punisher writer is busy. Aren't they working on Born Again too?
Maybe. I think that was a different writer.
Oh, it's a different writer. Okay, yeah. I was gonna say the Punisher team eating good after these strikes. Like they got all called up off the bench. Like, come help make these more gritty, grounded versions of other Marvel things. And maybe one day they'll get to do their own thing again. Maybe John Bernthal will get to be it again. That'd be funny. We're just gonna make Johnny Spider-Man Noir. Have fun. Have fun. But I am rooting for Nick Cage to get it just so we can get Jamie to interview him. That's what we're all after.
Yeah. So we started talking about this before the show started, and then we had to actually start the countdown. But we might as well have this debate here because I guess it technically does tie into like Beyond the Spider-Verse and all of that. Because Nick Cage did an interview this week where he was like, he maybe has 2 or 3 movies left, and then he's not going to do movies anymore. Jamie, do you believe that?
I feel like a year ago he was like, I'm never slowing down. So either something's going on that we don't know about that's not good, or I just can't believe it. This man makes like 5 movies a year and he likes it. And but there's also other reasons he kind of has to make movies for certain financial reasons. But maybe that chapter of his life is done. Maybe he's finally caught up with himself in that way. But I just can't imagine a world where Nick Cage isn't pumping out movies all the time, because we get at least one gem a year. I mean, my goodness, we got Dream Scenario this year. We got Massive Talent last year. We got Pig the year before. Like that, like people talk about how he makes these bad movies, but that's just because he makes a lot of movies. He made so many good movies. If I always say, like, if I could, we always have play that game. If you could only watch one actor's filmography for the rest of your life, who would it be? And mine would be Nick Cage, because it's vast and there's so much and there's juice and I love him. I just can't. I'm in denial if this is true.
I would expect nothing less. That was a perfect answer. Aaron, do you want to weigh in on that? Because I know you prompted the debate before we had started
I
recording.
just said, I'm like, if he's only going to do 2 or 3, I'm like, man, you have to be really selective about what we get because everybody wants him to be in Secret Wars. So that's one right there. You know, everybody wants that. Noir I feel like he's going to be in Beyond Spider-Verse too, right? Because he was the crowd of like the people going to save Miles at the end. Spoilers for a movie that came out 6 months ago. So that'd be interesting. God bless this Amazon Spider-Verse stuff for still trying to just move forward despite everything else going on. Like that Silk series and this Spider-Man Noir series are just trying to carry the torch. All me and Jenna wanted was Black and Silver. That's all we really wanted.
Know.
And it never happened.
I am still mourning that movie every day of my life. Silver and Black would have been so much fun. I just want to see those characters. I don't care where. I just need Silver Sable and Black Cat somewhere. And the fact that still is never happening is just wild to me.
Jen and Aaron, the chat want to know if you have an answer to if you could only watch one filmography.
I was going to key that up because I love that question. I have 2 answers and I kind of want to say them both because it's like one is more of a like modern answer and one is just more all encompassing. For like in terms of like a modern actor, Margot Robbie, like easily. And it's not just because I personally love so many of her movies, but it's just like the projects that she picks are so fascinating and so like wide ranging that would be my answer. But like in a more broad context, I'm going to say Jane Fonda because every single movie of hers I adore. Barbarella is one of my favorite movies ever. I just like every single little thing of hers that I find, it's just a gem. So her filmography is just a delight.
Jenna just has to keep watching Clute because it's like
it is on my DVR. It is recorded on my DVR to watch very soon.
Really good.
Yeah, so those would be my 2 answers. Aaron, what about you?
I got Denzel probably. I'd imagine because there's just such a weird difference of things. Like there's like stuff that's like very very serious people really enjoy, and then also like me making jokes about like flight and him just flying a plane smashed. Like a lot of the stuff was in my like film classes when I was in school too. So I'm like, oh yeah, we just get to, revisit Mississippi Marsala for no reason. And then I guess if I had 2, probably Will, just because all that stuff was from when we were kids and it's just very fun and light, but there's also like very serious stuff in there as well. I don't know. It's hard to think about just one person's filmography forever. Like
there's a lot to consider. Tony picks James Hong because it's so long. It's such a big
yeah.
Like that's in his mind. It's like more. But like I'm more of a rewatcher. I can watch adaptation 10 times in a day and I'll be satisfied. So.
I love that. I was going to say, like, probably there's some character actor out there who you could technically pick and watch like the most wide swath of movies possible. But yeah, this is such a fascinating question. Like I've always heard it and I've never thought about it for myself. So I'm glad we could do all of that. Yeah. So to kind of wrap things up for the show, Aaron has a little theory, I guess we can call it, about Kang Dynasty.
Yeah, I was thinking about after our hilarious, remembering our predictions episode from last week, which I go down in flames on. You should go watch me and Jamie be mortified by things that came out of our mouths.
It was such a fun episode, though. Thank you guys. Everyone who has listened to it and tweeted about it, thank you, because that was a joy to be a part of.
Every time I feel bad, I remember Jamie Drack telling me, "You're smarter than them. Don't do that." So I was thinking about prediction things and trying to piece together because a lot of these weird, like nebulous reporting about Marvel things have weird rumors / speculation in them that I'm like, where does all this disparate like speculation come from? And I remember us talking about, was it last week? Because so much stuff happens. Destin left Kang Dynasty last week, correct?
The week before,
it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So him stepping away, and I remember Jenna being like, "This is not even going to be Kang Dynasty. It's not even going to be that. It would be something else by the time we get to this point next year." And I probably agree, just because all the smoke. You're sitting there like that dog in a house, and it's just like you cannot ignore it. But I also thought about the weird rumors from that Variety article where they were talking about bringing back the original 6. And I was thinking, I'm like, well, what possible story could you do? Because I remember I made the joke with Brandon about Avengers Forever, and that's time travel, and you could bring them back that way. But it would also feel very much like Endgame. It'd be like, here's Endgame Part 2, here's a thing that you remember. Don't you like this thing that you remember? So I think as like a long shot, maybe what they were thinking about doing, and it's hilarious because it's come up in the comics in last year, and I'm sure Jenna can tell our viewers about it who are not familiar, but I think there's a very slim possibility. Like if you were thinking about doing a Avengers 5 that was not like Avengers Forever or whatever, or Avengers vs. X-Men. I know you're there, BD. Hi. I think one of the things they would think about doing is Heroes Reborn. And doing that. And that would solve a lot of the problems that people in our audience have had with a lot of this stuff. Because for those who are unaware, Heroes Reborn is basically Reed Richards' son, creates a pocket universe with different weird versions that are slightly like you remember, but also kind of not of the original Avengers. And that gives you Chris Evans Captain America that's kind of our Captain America, but not really. And Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, but not really. And it gives you possibly them having an incursion to deal with on their Earth that would make you care about one of the other Earths because they're the actors we all like pay attention to and know and love. And I was like, what if that's what, because it's been getting such a push in the comics the last year and a half that I'm like, what's with all, not that I love being reminded of being 9 years old, okay? I was on eBay looking at Super Soakers 2 days ago, guys, okay? Like vintage water guns for no reason.
Come over.
I know. Like I say, shout out Lonnie Johnson. Sorry, Matt Rife, I took your shtick. But yes, I absolutely think that might have been what, like a sort of angle, like a pivot that they could have did. But I'm not sure. What do you guys think about that?
I really like that. I also, because they did the Heroes Reborn originally, and then they did like a more modern one like a year and a half ago. And that one was really interesting because it was basically their attempt at doing like a DC amalgam of like a lot of the alternate versions that people saw. My favorite bit from that, like my two favorite things were they had Gwen Stacy basically operating as like Burnside Barbara Gordon of like, because when you kind of break it down, it's like Spider-Gwen and Batgirl over the past like 10, 15 years have a lot of similarities. And then there was also a one shot where Peter Parker didn't have superpowers, but he was just basically the Jimmy Olsen of the universe and was just taking pictures of Hyperion, who was the Superman of this universe. I could definitely see a version of that working. I also just selfishly, I'm always banging the drum of the Squadron Supreme. So any way to get them to work. I tweeted the day that Destin like was announced to no longer be involved with this movie. There's a version of Avengers 5 that could just be Avengers versus the Squadron and just them fighting. And I think that would get us to care about another universe and would make it work. Yeah, we wouldn't necessarily get the OG 6 Avengers in there, but it would still be something. But I do like your idea because I feel like that threads the needle of a lot of those things.
A lot of things. Jamie.
This is interesting. When I think about the original 6 coming back, I really think of it as more of a cameo. I can't picture the 6 of them starring in another Marvel movie. And a part of me loves the idea and is like, yes, because I love nostalgia. But another part of me is like, no, we gotta move on, because I think that's part of this kind of sludge we're in right now, is that they're just trying to figure that out. And if they backtrack more again, it's just going to put us back in the same position that it's been after Endgame, of certain people, certain audiences just aren't ready for new, but like, we got to get there somehow. We've got to move on a little bit. And I love what we've seen for the most part. There's not a lot of stuff we've seen since Endgame that I didn't like, but that doesn't change the numbers. And yeah, would that movie do really well? Probably. And I think it's a cool idea and I would love it, but I really can't imagine all 6 of them being like, yep, I'm ready to star in another movie in just a couple of years. Like Jenna said, but RDJ is going to get an Oscar nom soon, and ScarJo's looking to produce things. And, I'm sure we'll see, but I would be shocked.
Go ahead, Jane.
No, because I agree with that. I also we have to think about the Jeremy Renner of it all, of he's still in recovery and he is still going to be acting and things, but we don't know what capacity and what that's going to look like, and if that could be just a full-on action movie again. I've always envisioned, if the original 6 come back, it's literally just going to be to recreate the spinning moment from 2012, just with alternate versions of each of those characters. It's this thing, and I've mentioned this on the show before, of just I always have to have this cognitive dissonance and this understanding of kids these days almost they were born at while the MCU was in the middle of its run. They might have some sort of familiarity with Iron Man, Captain America, all of the OG6 Avengers, but they have grown up in a world where the MCU was already started, and so they might not have the the absurd attachment that a lot of people our age and older do have. And so I agree with Jamie. I think there's a way to get that little pop of nostalgia, but not have it be the only thing, because in the process you have the newer Avengers, you have the newer heroes, and we need to foster them more.
Yeah,
I would like to say real quick, some information has come to light. Brendan in the comments has informed me that President Coulson exists in Heroes Reborn. So I'm gonna go back and say, never mind. I want this exact thing now. Forget everything I said. Forget all my thoughtfulness. I just want to see that.
The breaking news of that. That was so good. Oh my god.
I have no problem with the original plan of having all of our new Avengers just getting scraped by Kang in Avengers 5. I want people to know, I really liked Phase 4 and most of what we've gotten. But I was just trying to figure out, how did this rumor thing come from? What could they possibly have planned to do it? It just popped out as a me. I was like, they did this in the comics 4 seconds ago. Okay.
I also do think that Variety article, as we've said many times on the show, a lot of that was a grain of salt. Bruh. So I don't doubt that again, we've all known that those conversations are realistically going to happen or might already be happening, but I don't know. They might not even know what the story beat of that even looks like yet. There's no way of knowing.
Yeah, that's true. Also, John Brown wants to know, how do you feel about the Snyderverse cast as the Supreme cast? No.
I love the Squadron Supreme so much. Part of the problem is also some of the strongest, most interesting members of the Squadron Supreme are characters that do not exist in the Snyderverse and did not exist on the Snyderverse Justice League. So you cannot do a straight 1-for-1. There is a yes, they're pastiches of the Justice League, but they all devolve into something so different from the characters that they are a pastiche of. So I would love an instance where you could have entirely new actors, maybe a couple where you're poking fun at oh, that person has been on a short list for Superman 3 times and now they're playing Hyperion. You could have fun with it, but let new people come in and kind of put their stamp on it, because I think that would be the best way to go.
Do not taint my MCU with the Snyderverse. How dare you put that out into the world?
I don't even think there is no universe in my mind where those actors would even want to do that. I know Henry Cavill was yeah, maybe Hyperion, I don't know, but that was at such a different time with what the DC universe was at, what his Witcher and everything was at versus where we are at now.
Can you imagine how angry Ben Affleck would be if you asked him to come back and do that? Can you imagine the dropping of the giant Dunkin' Donuts cup straight on the ground as you ask him that question? And Jennifer being come on, hun, we're not doing that. Come on. We're
That's the thing. I'd rather have Ben come back as Matt Murdock than as Nighthawk. That there's another actor out there who could do a much better Nighthawk than Ben Affleck would want to do at this point in time. So yeah, no Snyderverse connection. Just make it entirely new people. Mm-hmm. Well, this has been a very, very fun Phase Zero. I've really enjoyed this, and I hope everyone else has too. Jamie, do you have anything to leave the audience with?
Oh, keep an eye out for that VFX interview that Aaron and I are doing. I'm excited for people to see it. Next week, we're going to do the rankings. Let's see. I'm just putting this out there because I keep telling BD, I'm ready to rank the Foxverse. Ooh. When are we doing that? I want to do that because we have not talked enough about those movies, and I want to talk about them. But yeah, I'm at Jamie Jarek on Instagram, TikTok, and Letterboxd. 'Tis the season.
I feel like we need to save that idea for when we have such a drought of content. When we're waiting for the one movie of 2024. I think that would my favorite.
It would lead into Deadpool 3 nicely.
Absolutely. Aaron, do you have anything to plug?
It's at Something Hornet on Twitter. And are you sure we haven't talked about the Foxverse enough?
Well, I I skipped the draft episode because I
Oh, yeah.
and part of that was because I'm like, I can't draft these movies. People don't know how I feel about them. I can't play the game correctly. Because I want to be out to win, but they don't know how I feel about these movies. So that's too stressful for me. They don't know. You guys don't know what my favorite. Hey, guess what? Here's a little tease. Here's a little drip. My favorite Marvel movie of all time is in the Fox universe. Think about that.
Wow.
That's a little tease.
I will say, like, there's no way your bracket in that instance would have been weirder than Jim's bracket, so I think you would have been fine.
I'm asking her about that off camera. I don't know what the heck she's talking about.
I know. I need to know.
I mean, the people demand answers, like, you know. So that. Look out for our interview with that. Thank you guys for watching other interviews. All the spotlight interviews have been super, super fun. Look out. I think this week, what are we covering besides like more Brandon CCXP stuff that he sacrificed himself for? Go read all of our coverage of Fallout and Halo and all that stuff and assorted grilled meats that Brandon Davis got to eat.
And I'm at Hey It's Jenna Lynn on social media. As always, go read some comics. There are new issues of Birds of Prey and Fire and Ice and a lot of other really great books this week. There's the Batman Santa Claus crossover, which is utterly delightful.
Yay.
I recommend that. And yeah, don't forget to follow Phase Zero on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it. Don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I promise when we are in a drought of content, we will do another episode where we read the 5-star reviews and answer your questions. And yeah, stay tuned for the bonus episode on Friday and play the show for your mom, play it for your dog. I still have not done this whole bit that BD does, but you know what? You know what the deal is. So stay tuned for the bonus episode on Friday and we will see you next Wednesday.